live on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously. And now, okay, there we go. And we are here. And let me turn my phone off so we don't get disturbed in the middle of everything, which is a good idea. Okay, we'll chant Jai Radhamadava now. Jaya Radhamadava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radhamadava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Vadadhauti Gopi Janaballabha Giri Vadadhauti Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radhamadhuva Kunya Bihari Jaya Radhamadhuva Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Vadadhauti Gopi Janaballabha Giri Vadadhauti Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radhamadhuva Kunya Bihari Jaya Radhamadhuva Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya all Stotera Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapadnath Shyam Kund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol all glory is the assembled devotees all glory is the assembled devotees all glory is the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Guru Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Budle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaman Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deja Tarane So, Om Ganata Mirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we're going to continue with our study of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I want to say hello to everybody here online. It's good to see Bhakti again. Hare Krishna. In Croatia. So, and that's really late at night. So, let's chant the prayer to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Twaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, and we're continuing with our study of the first chapter in the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, of course, by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Okay, let us continue. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Text 47. Shiksha Guru Keta Jani Krishnara Swarup Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha Hedvi Rupa. Okay. And let's go down. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Godhead, personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. So, of course, the spiritual master is known as the external manifestation of super soul, and the super soul is known as the guru inside, a guru in the heart. And therefore, the super soul is known as Checha Guru. That means guru right there. And then the spiritual master is known as the external spiritual super soul. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within he teaches as Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without he teaches from the Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is a liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation and devotional service, and the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions of the science. Actually, we were reading in the middle of this. We actually read that portion. We were right in the middle of this particular. As far as I remember. Oh no, we were in the middle of the previous one. Sorry. Hold on a second. We're going to go back a little bit. Let's continue here. The real Vedic philosophy is Achinchya Veda Tattva. Yes. Which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Shri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha has clearly explained that as pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as being one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudev, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead in all the ancient literatures of devotional service and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Actually, so we were reading, we started here. The instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. When by learning from the self-realized spiritual master, one actually engages himself in the service of Lord Vishnu, functional devotional service begins. The procedures of this devotional service are known as abhideya, or actions one is duty-bound to perform. Our only shelter is the Supreme Lord, and one who teaches how to approach Krishna is the functioning form of the personality of Godhead. There's no difference between the shelter-giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual masters. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. Very heavy statement. So one thing very important to understand, we talk about abhideya, sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana, which I've mentioned a number of times before. Sambandha means establishing or understanding your relationship with the Lord. Abhideya means acting in terms of that relationship, and even in practice. And prayojana means completely realizing what one's relationship is and becoming an absolutely pure devotee. So the spiritual master, the initiating spiritual master, is considered the one who gives you sambandha gyan, connects you with Krishna, and teaches you the tattvas. And the instructing spiritual master is one who engages you in Krishna's service. And of course, the presiding deity of the second stage of devotional service, which is known as abhideya, which is mentioned here, is Govindaji. And Rupa Goswami is the main acharya as far as this second stage of devotional service is concerned. So, but it's not that necessarily we have a different guru between the initiating and instructing spiritual master. Generally, those who give us initiation are also the instructing, or is also the instructing spiritual master. That's the general principle. Srila Sanatana Goswami is the ideal spiritual master, for he delivers one of the shelter of the lotus feet of Madan Mohan. Even though one may be unable to travel in the field of Vrindavan due to forgetfulness of his relationship with the personality of Godhead, he can get an adequate opportunity to stay in Vrindavan and derive all spiritual benefits by the mercy of Sanatana Goswami. Shri Govindaji acts exactly like the Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master, by teaching Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita. He is the original preceptor, for he gives us instructions and an opportunity to serve him. The initiating spiritual master is a personal manifestation of Srila Madan Mohan Vigraha. Remember we talked about the three deities before? Madan Mohan, Govindaji, and Gopinath. So the instructing spiritual master represents Madan Mohan. The word Madan Mohan, as we mentioned many times before, means he who attracts one from Cupid's grasp, or one who attracts Cupid, and that, of course, is Krishna. Because everyone in this world is completely enamored by Cupid. Cupid means the objects of the senses, not necessarily just mundane romantic love. Anything that pleases, or we think that pleases our senses, indicates that Cupid has some influence over us. So, Madan Mohan attracts us away from Cupid, and then Govindaji, which we're going to hear about in a second, whereas the instructing spiritual master is a personal representative of Sri Govinda Deva, Vigraha. Vigraha means like form. Whereas Govindaji engages us in Krishna's service. Govinda means the pleaser of the senses. Both of these deities are worshipped at Vrindavan. Srila Gopinath is the ultimate attraction in spiritual realization. Gopinatha means the Lord of the Gopis. So one realizes the conjugal loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So this is Sanskrit in this next verse. Naivo padyantya pachitam kavayastavesha Brahmayupat Brahmayushapi Caritamrita mudasmaranta Yontarvahistanubratam ashubham vituvan Acharya Chaitya Vapusha Swakatim Vyanakti. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. So let me explain how Supersoul directs us, because right now you cannot hear directly the Supersoul, or maybe if you can, but that's very unusual. Most of us cannot hear directly the Supersoul. Many times in the past, I've been talking to people of different religious persuasions, and they tell me that God is in their heart and God is personally talking to them. And I ask them, what is God telling you? And they said, well, we don't know. And then I say to them, does God actually tell you to go to the bar, get drunk, take intoxication, and do all these other things? And then they get embarrassed and walk away. So basically, until we become 100% pure, we cannot hear directly from the Supersoul. We can hear directly from the Guru, who's the external manifestation of Supersoul. But we can understand the Supersoul's presence by something described in the Bhagavad Gita. Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that he gives us remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. So when Krishna gives us some particular type of intelligence, and that intelligence is given to us according to our desire. So it gets really tricky. So we have to have the right desire so we get the right intelligence. If you desire to forget Krishna, you get the intelligence by which you can forget Krishna. As Krishna says in the Gita, to those who are devoted and worship me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So you can also understand, although there's no such verse in the Bhagavad Gita, to those who don't want to know God and don't want to worship him and want to forget God, God gives the intelligence to forget him and not worship him and become a nice atheist. So anyway, so super soul functions to give intelligence according to the desire of the living entity. For example, if someone desires to know God, super soul will direct him to a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master. Okay, so purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29-6 was spoken by Sri Uddhava after he heard from Sri Krishna all the necessary instructions about yoga. And then, of course, here we get to the Bhagavad Gita. Remember this verse? Actually, this is the verse I just quoted in English. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted in serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And as I said before, to those who are constantly devoted to avoiding God, ignoring God, Krishna gives the intelligence by which they can get away from him. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 10th verse, clearly states how Govinda Deva instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment and theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening, that means his eternal relationship with Krishna. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. And we know that Prabhupada here is making reference to the next verse in the Gita. Actually, not the next verse, the previous verse. Machita madgata prana, padyantas cha parasparam, katyantas chamam nicham, tushanti cha ramanti cha, which exactly says the same thing as Prabhupada said here. To those devotees, machita madgata prana, padyantas, they engage in discussing with each other and derive great joy and satisfaction by enlightening each other. Text 50. Yatha brahmane bhagavan swayam upadishyanubhavatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made himself realize. The English maxim that God helps those who help themselves is also applicable in the transcendental realm. There are many instances in the revealed scriptures of the personality of Godhead acting as the spiritual master from within. The personality of Godhead was the spiritual master who instructed Brahma, the original living being in the cosmic creation. When Brahma was first created, he could not apply his creative energy to arrange the cosmic situation. At first, there was only sound vibrating the word tapa, which indicates the acceptance of hardships for spiritual realization. Refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulties for spiritual realization. This is called tapasya. An enjoyer of the senses can never realize God, godliness, or the science of theistic knowledge. Thus, when Brahma, initiated by Sri Krishna by the sound vibration tapa, engaged himself in acts of austerity by the pleasure of Vishnu, he was able to visualize the transcendental world, Sri Vaikuntha, through transcendental realization. Modern science can communicate using material discoveries such as radio, television, and computers, but the science invoked by the austerities of Sri Brahma, the original father of mankind, was still more subtle. In time, material scientists may also know how we can communicate with the Vaikuntha world, but that would be pretty good. Lord Brahma inquired about the potency of the Supreme Lord, and the personality of God answered his inquiry in the following 6 consecutive statements. These instructions, which are reproduced from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 9th chapter, texts 31 to 36, were imparted by the personality of Godhead, acting as the supreme spiritual master. So these particular verses are very, very important verses in which the Lord lays the groundwork for the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. And by unpacking these 4 verses, we can understand the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. So, this first verse is introductory to the 4 verses. Jnanam paramaguyam me yagyik vijnana samanvitam saharasyam tadangam cha grahana gaditam maya. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but also full of mysteries. Transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna is deeper than the impersonal knowledge of Brahman, for it includes knowledge of not only his form and personality, but also everything else related to him. There is nothing in existence not related to Sri Krishna. In a sense, there is nothing but Sri Krishna, and yet nothing is Sri Krishna save and except his primeval personality. This knowledge constitutes a complete transcendental science, and Vishnu wanted to give Brahmaji full knowledge about that science. The mystery of this knowledge culminates in personal attachment to the Lord, with a resulting effect of detachment from anything non-Krishna. There are 9 alternative transcendental means of attaining this stage: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshiping, praying, assisting, fraternizing with the Lord, that means becoming a friend with the Lord, and sacrificing everything for him. These are the Nava Bhakti practices. That means the 9 practices of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam, which means hearing and chanting. Excuse me. These are different parts of the same devotional service, which is full of transcendental mystery. The Lord said to Brahma that since he was pleased with him, by his grace, the mystery was being revealed. So this is actually the introductory verse, and another introductory verse here. Text 52. Yavanaham yata bhavo yadrupa guna karmataha tathaiva tattva vijnanam astu te mananugrahat. By my causeless mercy be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. And Srila Prabhupada explains, the transcendental personal forms of the Lord are a mystery, and the symptom of these forms, which are absolutely different from anything made of material or mundane elements, are also mysterious. The innumerable forms of the Lord, such as Shamashundara, Narayana, Rama, and Gora Sundara, the colors of these forms, white, red, yellow, cloud-like Shama, and others. His qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees, and as impersonal Brahman to dry speculators. His uncommon activities like lifting Govardhan Hill, marrying more than 16,000 queens at Dwarka, and entering the rasa dance with the damsels of Braja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in the dance. These and innumerable other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysteries, one aspect of which is presented in the scientific knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, which is read and adored all over the world by all classes of scholars with as many interpretations as there are empiric philosophers. The truth of these mysteries was revealed to Brahma by the descending process, that means coming down from Krishna, not by his trying to figure it out, without the help of the ascending one. That's him trying to figure it out because he was the only one around at that time. The Lord's mercy descends to a devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, from Vyasadeva to Shukadev, and so on, in the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. In other words, descends all the way to us, from Prabhupada, Prabhupada's representative, to ourselves. We cannot discover the mysteries of the Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by his grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. So, in other words, as Krishna says in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Yayatamam prabhajante tam sataiva bhajamiham. As someone approaches him, he reciprocates accordingly. In other words, impersonalists who depend on the strength of their poor fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits, morbid is kind of a disgusting word, without submission and service in the forms of hearing, chanting, and the others mentioned above, cannot penetrate to the mysterious region of transcendence where the supreme truth is a transcendental person free from all tinges of the material elements. Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by common spiritualists who are merely trying to enter the spiritual region from the mundane platform. Okay, here's the first of the Chatu Shloki verses. Chatu Shloki means the 4 essential verses, which are the key verses in the Bhagavatam, the nutshell verses in the Bhagavatam, the original Bhagavatam spoken by Krishna to Lord Brahma, from which the rest of the Bhagavatam was expanded by the disciplic succession. Okay, here we go. Very important verse. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sadasat param kascha aham yadit tachcha yo vishashita soshmiyam. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. So in other words, Krishna is beyond time. He's not time-bound. So here Prabhupada explains this very nicely. Aham means I, therefore the speaker who is saying I must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers who interpret this word aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that aham means I, and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead speaking to Brahma uses aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. And this is one of the favorite types of discussions that Prabhupada has to dissuade people from having an impersonal interpretation either of the Srimad Bhagavatam or of the Bhagavad Gita. And one of Prabhupada's favorite verses, insofar as discussing this particular aspect of the philosophy, is the verse Manmana Bhavamat Bhakto Madhyashimam Namaskuru. Because when this verse was translated by Dr. Radhakrishna, the previous president of India, Dr. Radhakrishna commented on this verse where Krishna says, Manmana, think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and Krishna uses the personal pronoun me. Dr. Radhakrishna says Krishna doesn't mean himself. He means the unborn, beginningless within himself. So that is really an indirect interpretation. I mean, it's just like if someone, or myself, I ask for something, and I say, please bring me a glass of water, and you say, you didn't mean yourself. You meant to bring the glass of water and pour it on the ground. So in other words, it doesn't make sense. So Prabhupada would constantly talk about this. Constantly doesn't mean all the time, but quite often talk about this particular point, how Krishna uses this personal pronoun in different places, like in this particular verse, and therefore Krishna indicates that he is a person, and the verse is about the person, Krishna. So before the creation and after its dissolution, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates exist. There is no existence of the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudevo vahinam agrasin brahma nacha shankaraha. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation, there was no existence of Brahma or Shiva, for only Vishnu existed. Vishnu exists in his abode, the Vaikunthas. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on each of them Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there's another abode, which is never dissolved, Vyakta Avyakta Sanatana. That's the expression in the Gita. The word creation refers to the material creation because in the spiritual world, everything exists eternally and there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that before the material creation, he existed in fullness with all transcendental opulences, including all strength, wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. If one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, military commanders, palaces, and so on. Since a king has such opulences, one can simply try to imagine the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord says, Aham, therefore, it is to be understood that he exists with full potency, including all opulences. The word Yat refers to Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. In the Brahma Samhita, the 5th chapter, text 40, it is said, Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Asheshabhutam. The Brahman effulgence expands unlimitedly, just as the sun is a localized planet within the sunshine, with the sunshine expanding unlimitedly from that source. So the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with its effulgence of energy, Brahman expanding unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy, the creation appears just as a cloud appears in the sunshine. From the cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from the vegetation comes fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily luster of the Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation of the infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of that energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him and his abode, the Vaikuntha's, this Brahmajyoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Since impersonalists cannot understand the source of the Brahman energy, they mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman the ultimate or absolute goal. But as stated in the Upanishads, one has to penetrate the impersonal effulgence to see the face of the Supreme Lord. If one desires to reach the source of the sunshine, he has to travel through the sunshine to reach the sun and then meet the predominating deity. The absolute truth is the Supreme Person, Bhagavan, as Srimad Bhagavatam explains. So Prabhupada here is analyzing this verse very, very nicely. And another point which I did also make the other day was that the Brahmajyoti is sometimes called the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in actuality, all the little particles of light are jiva souls that are floating as part of that effulgence or manifesting that effulgence. And these jiva souls are jiva souls that desire to merge into the effulgence, but they don't actually merge in the effulgence. They appear to merge in the effulgence. And the example given in the Upanishads is that a green bird appears to merge in a green tree, but it doesn't actually merge in a green tree. It just goes into the green tree because it's camouflaged. It's like soldiers sometimes put on a particular type of uniform that has the same color or combination of colors or looks like a forest. So they sort of melt into the forest, and also they cover their faces with some sort of makeup so you can't see the faces, and then they can go into the forest and not be detected by the enemy. So that's camouflage. So in the same way, the soul appears to merge into the Brahmajyoti, but it doesn't actually merge in the Brahmajyoti. It just floats around the Brahmajyoti, and when it gets really tired of floating around the Brahmajyoti, it pops out of the Brahmajyoti and comes back to the material world. Doesn't go back to Godhead, that's for sure. Sat means effect, and Asat means cause, and Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental cause and effect. The cause of the creation is called the Mahatattva, or the total material energy, and its effect is the creation itself. But neither cause nor effect existed in the beginning. In other words, there's no time, so you can't have cause and effect. And that's why it says in the Brahma Samhita, Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is the cause of all causes, and there's no cause of Krishna. Krishna has no cause. So neither cause nor effect existed in the beginning. They emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as did the energy of time. This is stated in the Vedanta Sutra, Janma Vyasya Yataha. The absolute truth is that from which everything comes. The source of birth of this cosmic manifestation, or Mahatattva, is the personality of Godhead. This is confirmed throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, and this is the first of the nutshell verses in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha. I'm the fountainhead of all emanations. The material cosmos, being intemporary, is sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but its energy emanates from the Supreme Absolute Lord. Before the creation, there was neither cause nor effect, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed with his full opulence and energy. The word Paschad Aham indicate that the Lord exists after the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. When the material world is dissolved, the Lord still exists personally in the Vaikunthas. During the creation, the Lord also exists as he is in the Vaikunthas, and he also exists as the super soul within the material universes. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, text 37, Goloka Eva Nivashati, which basically means Krishna never leaves Goloka Vrindavan. Although he is perfectly and eternally present in Goloka, Vrindavan, and Vaikuntha, he is nevertheless all-pervading Akilatma Bhuta. So that's the whole verse. Goloka Eva Nivashati, Akilatma Bhuta. The all-pervading feature of the Lord is called the Supersoul. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Ham Kritsnasya Jagata Prabhaha. The cosmic manifestation is a display of the energy of the Supreme Lord. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Since the energy of the Lord is not different from him, in fact, everything that exists is Krishna and in his impersonal feature. Sunshine, sunlight, and heat are not different from the sun. And yet simultaneously, they are distinct energies of the sun. That's a Chincha Beta Beta Tattva philosophy again. Similarly, the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are energies of the Lord, and they are considered to be simultaneous, one with and different from him. The Lord therefore says, I am everything, because everything is his energy and is therefore non-different from him. Yo Vishishyeta Soshmyaham indicates that the Lord is the balance that exists after the dissolution of the creation. The spiritual manifestation never vanishes. It belongs to the eternal energy of the Supreme Lord and exists eternally. When the external manifestation, that's the material world, is withdrawn, the spiritual activities in Goloka and the rest of the Vaikuntras continue unrestricted by material time, which has no existence in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 15th chapter, text 6, it is said, Yadgatva narivartante tadama paramama. The abode from which no one returns to this material world is the supreme abode of the Lord. So, another translation, yeah. Upon going there, one doesn't come back to this material world. That is my supreme abode. It's a direct translation I'm giving right now. So, that's the first of the nutshell verses, and basically, you don't have to remember the whole analysis of it, but basically what it is that Krishna's transcendental, is beyond time, he's beyond space, he's beyond the creation, he's beyond the dissolution, he's beyond the manifestation, he's always there in the spiritual world and acting his pastimes, and it's all transcendental. We can't understand that until we actually develop spiritual vision. Because how can you understand something that's beyond time? You just can't. You can't. It's not like a frozen photograph, like a photograph, someone's like frozen in one position. You could say that's beyond time? No, not really. It was taken at a particular time. And in the spiritual world, it's not that they're because they're beyond time, that everyone's just frozen in one position. They're moving. There's a progression of activities. So how to understand that? You can't. You can understand it theoretically. Yes, you can understand it theoretically, but not realize it until you actually are a pure devotee of the Lord. So here's the second verse of the nutshell verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Rate ratam napatiyeta chatmani tadyadatmano mayam yatabasho yatatamha. This describes what Maya or illusion is. It's a very important verse. Because Maya, as we've described before, it doesn't have basically an existence of itself other than being the absence of Krishna. And here's what Krishna says. What appears to be truth, Maya, of course, means illusion. It doesn't mean the material world. The material world exists. But the illusion that you are part of the material world is eternal, or you're the body. These are things that don't exist. The illusion doesn't exist. The illusory energy does exist. Okay. So here Krishna defines what illusion is. what appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy. So if you see something without connection to Krishna, you're actually perceiving Krishna as illusory energy, and you're an illusion. You're believing in something that doesn't exist. It's nothing. So, as Krishna says here, but nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows. For in the light, there are neither shadows nor reflections. So it's like a reflection of the light in the darkness. Because if you have light, there's neither shadows nor reflections. So it's not a real light, it's a reflection of the light. So that's the material world. And that, of course, is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter. Whereas this material world is described as a reflection of the spiritual world in the same way that a tree is reflected in a body of water and the tree is upside down with its roots upwards and branches down. So whatever you see here actually exists in the spiritual realm, but this is only a reflection. Another example that I can sometimes use, it's like a simulation, like a computer simulation of something that's in the real world. It's real as far as a simulation is concerned. Just like if you go and you put some goggles on, or whatever, computer goggles, and you enter into some sort of virtual reality or simulation, then you think you are actually in a particular place. Like I mentioned to the devotees, that several years ago I wanted to see what a particular computer simulation looked like. And that simulation was called Second Life. And it had something like 8 or 10 million people living in it. It may still exist. I don't know. I haven't looked at it recently. So I went in. And when I went into, it was like the Matrix. When I went into it, I took a particular avatar, means a particular body there. And in that body, we had some special powers. I could jump around a lot and fly around in the air and everything like that. And I was looking for a Hare Krishna temple when I went into this Second Life thing, this virtual reality simulation. And finally I found a Hare Krishna temple inside. And I also saw one of my disciples inside. I said, "Is that you?" I'll mention his name. "Is that you, Gopal?" "Yes, it's me, Guru Maharaj. I'm enjoying the virtual world. I'm here in the virtual world and I'm very happy. It's better than the real world." Gopal just sent me a note saying he went in because I told him to go in. It's better than the real world. I said, it's all illusion. Sure, it exists as electrons and all that other stuff. And sure, this material world exists as electrons and protons and neutrons and neutrinos and quarks and upside down quarks and right side up quarks. These are all different things. There's bosons and different things like that. It exists as that, but it doesn't exist in the way we think it exists. So this world is like that too. It doesn't really exist in the way we think it exists. It's just the shadow world of the spiritual realm. So ultimately, of course, I got out of that illusion, the virtual reality, the simulation. And actually, if you could say in one sense, I was actually in an illusion or a simulation within a simulation, because this material world is a simulation, and I was within another simulation within a simulation. So the whole point is to get out of this simulation, not to go further down and to get another simulation within a simulation. Or as Prabhupada said sometimes about intoxication, that intoxication, he didn't use the word simulation, is an illusion. But he said it's an illusion within an illusion. That's the point. So it's like another example of an illusion, what an illusion is. Let's take a rope and that you're seeing as a snake. So the rope exists, but the illusion is not the existence of the rope. The illusion is that you think it's a snake. So you're an illusion. The rope is not illusion. This material energy, which is composed of course, the Panchamahabhuta, the five great elements, and also the eight total elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, is real. But because we identify with it, that's the illusion. Just like that computer game or city that I went into is real. But because I thought it had the same nature, of course I didn't think, but maybe some of my disciples inside thought it had the same nature of this world, this external illusory world. That was the illusion. You get bewildered. Or you look at, let's take another example. Let's say you're watching a Bollywood movie and there's some romance. Now, obviously, sannyasi shouldn't be watching a romantic Bollywood movie. But let's say there's some romance and you're feeling your heartstrings and you're getting sad and you're crying. But what is that movie? It's simply an illusion. I mean, the movie exists, yes, but the reality that you're thinking that movie represents or is does not exist. Does not exist, believe me. It's just like a movie set. This material world is like a movie set. For example, when I was young, I visited some of Hollywood places where they film movies. I went to one place, I think it was called Knott's Berry Farm, yes, in California. When I was very young, before I joined the Hare Krishna movement. And I saw that many of the places that I thought were real were simply facades. What is a facade? A facade is like the outside of some building, but there's no building behind it. For example, I went to some places where they filmed westerns, cowboys, Indians shooting, everything like that. And there were storefronts, or the fronts of the stores, but if you go behind, it's just scaffolding. So that's like this material world. If you go behind everything, it's just scaffolding. There's no ultimate reality in that sense to this world. And so this is what Krishna is saying here. What appears to be truth without Krishna. So if you see something is not connected with Krishna, that's Krishna's illusory energy manifesting on your consciousness. And the illusory energy of Krishna has two aspects. She throws you into illusion and keeps you in illusion. What do you mean, keep you in illusion? Well, let's talk about throw you in illusion. Why should you join the Krishna consciousness movement? You have so many desires to work out in this world. Come on. How can you tolerate that? And then to keep you in illusion just means, that's throwing you in illusion. That's true. And keeping you in illusion. All right, let's talk about throwing illusion. Let's get more specific. So throwing your illusion, like some illusory or attractive feature marches by, let's say, attractive man or woman, if you happen to be attracted to that sort of stuff, and you get thrown in. Boom! Keeping you. Oh, I have so many responsibilities. Anyway, so let's go and take some questions. I went a little longer than I had planned to. Illusion. Okay, let's release you from your bondage of being not being able to speak. Hold on one second. Okay, you can all ask questions. Whoever is first, but not Praneshra. You asked too many questions to let. No.
Up to two questions. I have two questions.
I'm putting you on mute. You got to give other people opportunity. I muted you. So,
Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisance.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada. So, You have some questions?
Yes, Gurudev. Just how do you distinguish between mind and intelligence?
Ah, that's very interesting. The mind basically accepts and rejects things based upon your desire. Let's say I walk by an ice cream shop, you know, and they have these Baskin Robbins ice cream shop, and they have chocolate ice cream, and the mind says, "Go for it, eat it. Nobody will know." And the intelligence, based upon your long-term objectives in life, will say no because it would not be pleasing to Krishna. Or the intelligence will say, offer it to Krishna first, then you can take it. But anyway, so the intelligence is based more or less upon one's longer term objectives in life. Uh, and the mind is like accepting and rejecting things based on the momentary impulses or thoughts that come to you. That's how I like to distinguish between the two. Now, the example given in the Upanishads, which Prabhupada quotes in the Bhagavad Gita, is that the chariot, use the same metaphor, there is a chariot with 5 horses, and the 5 horses represent the 5 senses. And each of the horses is attached to the driver with reins, and the reins are compared to the mind. The reins. You understand reins? The ropes, or whatever you use to control the horses, compared to the mind. The driver is compared to the intelligence, and the passenger is compared to the soul. So the passenger has to direct the driver, which in turn holds the reins, keeps them in check. In other words, holds the reins firmly. Now, if the driver, which is the intelligence, lets go of the reins, then basically there's no control of the horses. The horses just run all over the place. So again, the horses are the 5 senses, the reins are the mind, the driver is the intelligence, and the passenger in the chariot is the soul. And the chariot itself is the body. So that gives you some indication. So according to your desires, according to my desires, according to anyone's desires, Krishna gives us specific intelligence. In other words, if we desire to forget Krishna, Krishna gives us the intelligence to forget him. And as Prabhupada quoted in the purport from the Bhagavad Gita, if we desire to remember Krishna, Krishna gives us the intelligence to remember him. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upiyat yantite. For those who worship me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So that's the difference between the mind and the intelligence. The mind is accepting and rejecting things based upon basically impulses, what strikes me.
Yes.
For example, all right, let me give you an example. In my own life, I will look at a specific car, and the car is a Tesla. I like Teslas. So I'll look at a Tesla and say, "Oh, I'd like to have a Tesla." And then the intelligence says, don't waste your money, or you don't have no money. But many people controlled by the mind will see a car that they want, and then they will not consider the long-term the long-term repercussions from buying that car, and they will go into debt. We have one of our devotees, one of my disciples, who finances cars as a living, or for his living. And he tells me all the time that people are buying cars that they can't afford. In other words, they'll buy a car, like here in America, for example. I don't know about other countries. People buy these pickup trucks. I have one friend who bought a pickup truck. He's not a devotee, but he's a friend. And the pickup truck cost him 100,000 US dollars. Now, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So why did he buy it? Well, he looked at it and he liked it and they were ready to finance it and he bought the stupid truck. And 100,000 US dollars for some stupid truck. And he doesn't have a lot of money either. He's just a contractor in the construction business. But if he had been intelligent, he would have known to control his mind. This is just a material example. It's not really dealing with Krishna consciousness, but it's just giving you a material example of the intelligence versus the mind. If he was intelligent, he would have known, hey, I'm going to be paying for this thing for 8 years. And I'm going to be paying $1,000 a month for this truck. So then he bought the truck, and he's afraid to use it too much because it costs too much. So it's just like his baby. He drives it around, and it's his baby. And so he had to buy some cheap vehicle so he could do his work with, even though he first of all bought the truck for his construction work, but it's too good. It's too good for his construction work. So that's the mind. His mind just like grabbed hold of him. So all of us have these moments where our mind is really telling us to do something. But then we think about it. Now, I'll give you an example of my own self. One day I was driving in Serbia, which is in Europe, and we drove, myself and a disciple. We were driving past a place where there was hang gliders. Hang gliders mean hang gliders. I don't know if you know what a hang glider is a hang glider. Where people either jump off mountains with these big wings attached to them, and they fly down, or they're pulled by a plane, or whatever. However they start the whole excursion. And I saw it, and I said to him, "Wouldn't that be fun?" So my mind was saying, "Wouldn't that be fun?" And he said, "Yes, Guru Maharaj. Whatever you want, Guru Maharaj. I am your eternal servant, Guru Maharaj. At your lotus feet, Guru Maharaj. I will pay for it." He will pay for it. And then I thought for a second. Then the intelligence took over. And the intelligence said, "Would Krishna be pleased with it? Would Prabhupada be pleased?" And I was trying to figure out some way to please Krishna by doing it. I was thinking, well, maybe it'll help me it'll remind me about how dangerous this material world is. And I'll chant better japa or something like that. No. And I thought, that doesn't work. Or I thought, well, maybe when I go up, I'll carry a banner behind me that says Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. I said, no, that's not going to work. And then I thought, well, if I do that and I get hurt, how am I going to explain that to my disciples? That I was just dancing too hard? So then intelligence took over and said, no, don't. Don't do it, Maharaj. And I said, yes, sir, I will not do it, even though my whole life I've wanted to go hang gliding. So that's, of course, I've exaggerated the story a little bit. So that's an example that shows us the difference between the mind and the intelligence.
Yes.
And sometimes the intelligence is called the form direction of the supersoul. So if you want Krishna, your intelligence will tell you how to connect to Krishna. But your mind may not tell you how to connect to Krishna. And of course, this whole incident happened like 20 years ago when I was a rascal. didn't happen recently. Recently, I've reformed. Anyway, so that just gives you an indication of the difference between the mind and intelligence. I think you understand that now, right?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Gurudev. Gurudev, I'm waiting for your book to come out on the Amazon. Please let us know when it comes out.
Which book?
You said the autobiography on your life.
Oh, that, yeah. Autobiography of a Bogey. No, it hasn't come out yet.
I'm looking forward to it, Gurudev.
It's not an autobiography, it's a biography.
Biography, yes.
It's a biography that wasn't written by. I could never write an autobiography because it would just be too boring. I mean, there's nothing so exciting that happened there, like getting attacked by tigers in the jungles of Africa or anything like that. The most exciting thing is I got spanked by my mother, and that's not so exciting. So, all right, so we're going to take one more question. Who else has a question? Not Praneshwara. No, no, no. Praneshwara. You have your wife now to answer all your questions. So, who else has a question?
Hare Krishna Gurudev, is Adidev Das.
Hari Dev, Hari Krishna. What's the
Gurudev,
question?
can you please elaborate on in the purport we read that Diksha Guru is a manifestation of Madan Mohan and Shiksha Guru is a manifestation of Govind and Gopinath. There's nothing mentioned. Can you please elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, so I think it's pretty clear, but Madan Mohan starts you on the path of devotional service because Madan Mohan attracts you from the different attractions in this material world and starts you in Krishna consciousness. So initiating guru means he who starts you on the path by enrolling you in Krishna consciousness. And then the initiating guru later on in 90% of the cases, or maybe 99% of the cases, is also the Siksha guru who engages you in devotional service according to your psychophysical nature. And that's Govindaji, Abhideya, and Prayojana is Gopinath. And also, yes, you also have Shiksha gurus who help you understand your eternal relationship with Krishna and develop further along the perfectional line in Krishna consciousness. And so there's Shiksha gurus who help you understand, or the Shiksha guru who helps you understand how to develop your relationship with Krishna. And that's Prayojana. I think it's pretty easy to understand. Govinda, go means senses, Vinda means the pleaser of the senses, or he who engages your senses in Krishna consciousness. Beginning with sadhana bhakti. Sadhana means bhakti in practice, and the first step of sadhana bhakti is Vaidhi bhakti. And then you have Raganuga bhakti, which is the second stage of practice. Then you have Bhava bhakti, and finally you have Prema bhakti, which is actually Prayojana, the goal of Krishna consciousness. I mean, it seems pretty clear. Any specific questions about that?
About the Gopinath, actually, I understood the Madan Mohan and Govindi part, but the Gopinath.
Well, if you're talking about perfection, then one's eternal spiritual master, we're chanting every morning, actually. Nikunjayuno Radikeli Siddhyat. That the spiritual master engages the disciple in the conjugal loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So one's guru actually acts in such a way as to engage one in the service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. That's also Prayojana. So, and at the same time, on the stage of Prayojana, one has an eternal resident in Braj that one follows in the footsteps of. For example, if one is on the platform of the Vatsalya Ras, Vatsalya means parental relationship, one has a specific resident in Braj let's say Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mai, or any of the other residents of Braj, that act as one's Siksha gurus or examples of Acharya. So in that sense, you actually have an eternal resident in Braj who acts as your guide when you're on the platform of Prayojana, as well as the external spiritual master within this world who acts as your guide, and also Prabhupada, who is everyone's Shiksha Guru and who continues to act as a guide for all of us, no matter what stage we're at in devotional service. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Gurudev. Yes, yeah.
Okay. But that's beyond, I think, most of the people in this class who are maybe not on that platform of recognizing their eternal relationship with Krishna and their eternal guide in the spiritual world.
So can we say that in the initiating spiritual master or the instructing spiritual master, when it comes to the Prayojan, they become the resident of Vrindavan,
Yes,
and
yes,
that's
of
not their
course.
guide.
Of course, yes. The initiating spiritual master and the instructing spiritual master, the initiating spiritual master who later on becomes the instructing spiritual master, manifests himself or herself, because ladies can be gurus, as in terms of one's of their eternal relationship or eternal position in the spiritual world. Like we talk about Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world. So for the devotees who are at that platform, Rupa Goswami manifests as Rupa Manjari to engage the devotee in Krishna service. Does that make sense? But that's very elevated.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how my spiritual master will manifest to me in Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan, as a stone. Yeah, that you'll see when it's time. Oh my God, as a computer.
Thank you, Gurudev.
That's revealed in time. I mean, Prabhupada said that we shouldn't try to speculate on Prabhupada's spiritual position. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually did reveal who he was in the spiritual world, as did Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but Prabhupada didn't. And Prabhupada indicated deserve than desire, and it gets revealed who Prabhupada is in the spiritual world, who one's guru is in the spiritual world, but that's a long way away.
If you're merciful, you'll reveal, Gurudev.
Yes, it will be revealed. Just continue chanting and worshiping and serving Prabhupada's mission. It will be revealed.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay, elevated subject matter. I'm just worried about not going bungee jumping. So, on that happy note, we'll end the class. All glories to Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila